Today, I'm honored to introduce Linda Denton Harris, author of the Amazon #1 new release, They're Not Here to Help, an advocate's guide to surviving family court, CPS, and the systems that profit from families. Linda is also the founder of the Families Matter movement, a growing national effort dedicated to protecting children, defending constitutional rights, and bringing accountability to family court and child welfare systems.
Thank you for having me. I'm very happy to be here. I talk about my book.
This is a great achievement because it's a lengthy book and there's a lot in it, but it's so well written and it teaches so much. So let's just jump right in. I'm going to ask you my first question, which is, what inspired you to write this book?
Well, I've been wanting to write this book for a long time because the system is really messed up. And unless you have dealt with it, you don't quite understand it. And I just want people to understand what they're walking into. But I really want people to understand they need to start working out their differences and not go to court. Because once you go in front of a judge, you have no idea what they're going to do.
One of the things I've been learning over the years is I've published Marianne Petrie's book, which is how you and I met, because she has a whole series about the corruption of family court and other books in that genre. I think a lot of times someone who hasn't had experience yet in the courts still believes that you get justice. And I know
Yeah.
that's not the case. And so that kind of sets up my second question. I hope that you'll really expound on that. My second question is, what do you hope that people will take from reading your book?
The biggest thing is I want people to understand what they're facing if they walk into court or if they have CPS at the door, because it's unbelievable what happens in court. You don't have due process. It's all about hearsay. As soon as you walk in there, the judge already knows what they're going to make and decision they're going to make. So there's really no due process at all. Basically, I just want people to understand that the best option is to try to solve your differences outside of court, because judges don't mind if you walk in there with the order to be signed. They have no problem with that. But when you walk in there and one side's against the other, then that's where they have to make the decision, and they're not going to make one you like.
Yeah, very rarely. I've seen time and time again, family court has really been turned into an industry where they make the most money by keeping you fighting. And they keep you
Yep.
fighting by using the children as pawns so that you have to keep fighting to try to get them back. Do you
Yep.
want to expand on that?
Yeah, I mean, there is no money in it to help families. That's why we have such a mental health issue. It's all about keeping families divided. And they want to keep fathers out of the home, grandparents away from the kids, and just keep everybody alone so that they are dependent on the system. And, years ago, it wasn't like that. Years ago, it was all about making the families work together and figure it out. But now they're trafficking our kids. It's a moneymaker with everybody, the attorneys, the providers, the judges. Everybody has something in it for themselves.
Yeah. It's actually, unless you've experienced it, it's hard to believe how bad it really is. And it's widespread.
Yeah, before I got involved, I was like everybody else. You have CPS involved. Well, what'd you do? You have an ex you're fighting against. I really didn't quite understand that part of it because I never dealt with that part until I had my grandkids. So that part is a completely different ballgame. I tell you what, I would much rather deal with CPS than I would with family court.
Yeah. As part of this segment where I ask you what hope people will take from reading your book, I like to take some of the excerpts that I picked out of your book and show what I took from reading your book that I think is important. And I'll be honest, it was really, really hard to narrow down to the few that I picked for this show because the whole book it's a hard topic for sure. However, you've been able to make it really interesting the way that you put it together. And you've included so many different people's experiences in addition to your own. Some really interesting people like Marianne Petrie, Carrie Ann George, Rod McCall, Dr. Evelyn Hemphill, known as Evelyn the Advocate. These are all people who've been through similar situations and are also, like you, doing something about it. And so it really does make the book fascinating. But I've mostly picked out excerpts from what you have to say. which of course is the majority of the book. But I just think it's really neat that you're able to give a voice to so many others. And I would say in the process, you really make the case. The second chapter in here is titled Stay Out of Family Court If You Can. And you make that case very well. So I'm just going to go through the book and read some of the excerpts that I picked out. That way the viewers get a feel for what it contains. And then if you would like to expound on anything I've selected, feel free to do that. Okay.
Alrighty. Sounds
All right.
good.
So the first excerpt that I chose is actually from chapter 1. And it says, the judge issued a 99-year restraining order against me, not for abuse, not for neglect, not for any harm I had caused my grandchildren, who had lived safely in my home for years, while I kept them fed, enrolled in school, and shielded from the chaos their mother brought into their lives. She issued it, the judge, she issued it because I had taught them their legal rights, because I had done exactly what the law required, because I had been correct about the statute when she was not, and she has never forgiven me for it. This is how your book starts. And I think that's so important that, I mean, a 99-year restraining order, that's unbelievable. That's like 99 years. That's like saying you can never see your grandchildren again. A restraining
Yeah,
order that long.
I know. And none of us knew she was even going to issue that order. In fact, it says on the order that I was in trial for 2 days, and so I didn't need to be served. Well, there was nothing on the record about that restraining order. That restraining order was done after the record. It was done on the side. My attorney and I had no idea until the police showed up at school and told my grandkids if they talk to me, I'll go to jail. And
Yeah.
it was all because I have an education and I fought back. I corrected them when they were wrong. And it got to the point to where they made sure my appeal lost. They wanted to
Yeah.
make sure I had no remedy. They went in and converted my record to remove me as petitioner and make me respondent, which gave my daughter standing and me not. And they changed the names around, and they basically defected the whole order. So when I went to appeals court, they only got a year. They didn't get the last 10 years of my caregiving.
You start with a bang, in a way. This is the first paragraph of the first chapter that I just read. I wish that this were just one rogue judge to do something so completely unconstitutional. But you continue throughout this book to show how this is more normal than it is abnormal.
It's the culture.
The
all of
culture, I
them do
like
it.
that. I like that. I
Yeah.
think that's really a good way to put it. It has become just standard operation for our family courts.
Well,
And
and she intimidated my attorney to where my attorney
Mhm.
was afraid to fight back.
Mm,
And when your attorney is afraid to represent you when you're paying them, that is a real problem.
and that also is not unusual.
No.
I want to highlight that your subtitle is An Advocate's Guide to Surviving Family Court, CPS, and the Systems That Profit from Families. And I think that's such a good subtitle because you're not just showing the problem, it's a guide. So you're
Yeah.
helping people navigate it. And you became an official advocate for families after all that you went through, which we can talk about in a minute. But just for the viewers who are watching this, if you're beginning the court process, this is really important to pay attention to. And this book will really help you. I just
That
believe
was
so
my
much
whole
in.
goal. I don't
Yeah.
want another family to walk
Mhm.
into court blindsided at all.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why this is a resource. It's not just a tell-all. And you state at the beginning in your preface, you make sure that it's not retaliation against anyone, whether it be your daughter or the lawyers or the judges. You're just trying to let this serve a purpose. And I think that's so important. You talk about family court CPS and the systems that profit from families. So my next excerpt I chose because it's just showing another way that the system profits from and meddles in your rights with your family. The title of this chapter is When the State Takes Your Child, Understanding Medical Kidnapping. So I love that you touch on medical kidnapping because the truth is, even somebody who maybe isn't going to court, any one of us that has children that takes them to the doctor runs this risk in them.
Yes.
So this is just something everybody needs to know about. But I'm going to go ahead and read a small excerpt from this. It says, you take your child to the hospital seeking help. You are worried, scared, and doing what any loving parent would do. But instead of leaving with answers and treatment, you leave without your child. A doctor has called Child Protective Services. Your family is now in the system. This is medical kidnapping, and it happens more often than most people realize. Can you expound a little bit on this just for the sake of those who need to know what is actually going on and how to protect themselves? I know that your book really goes into it, but
Well, I recommend everybody, unless it's an emergency, never go to the hospital. Go to your pediatrician because they know you. Okay.
Mhm.
The hospital don't. They are always so afraid of being sued that if you disagree with what they recommend, they will call CPS on you because then you are not doing what is medically appropriate for your child.
Yeah.
And even though
Although
you
it's their opinion matters and yours doesn't, right?
exactly. They're the
Mhm.
professionals. And even if you want a second opinion, depending on what it is, if it's an emergency, you may not have time for one. But young parents, especially, are really at risk. It's almost like the social workers in the hospitals are looking for a reason to take the child. And
Mhm.
especially brand new babies. If you're unmarried and you're in the hospital, they will do everything they can to try to trap you into doing something for an excuse to take the baby.
Yeah.
And it's a really scary, sad situation.
Well, and the system, from my understanding, is very much designed to motivate that. Like it's monetized. Again, the trafficking, there's money that exchange hands when a child is taken. That's just a fact. Yeah,
Yes.
so they're very motivated by that, whether or not they'll admit it. And some probably would admit it. And some, I don't know, some of these people, I just think they must not have a soul. Honestly, I don't know how they do what they do because I see so many stories like this. And I don't know how those CPS workers and those judges, lawyers, I don't know how they sleep at night because it's just so obviously unjust and it tortures the whole family when they do these things.
No, I don't understand either. And that's why I'm glad I didn't become an attorney because they would have disbarred me because there's no way.
'Cause you
I
wouldn't have been that kind of attorney. Yeah.
no,
I don't
there's
know
no
how,
way.
and the thing is, these attorneys would just get a conscience and band together and say, "This is wrong. We are in the system and we see it." But they never do. Occasionally, there might be one that tries, but they can't fight it themselves. They get disbarred themselves. Like you said, no point in being an attorney right now if you can't band together to change it.
The majority of attorneys are part of the problem, but there are a few, like my attorney,
Mhm.
he really, really felt bad for what was going on, but he couldn't do anything. And when I
Yeah.
asked him about it, he basically said, I have to eat because they would make it miserable for him. They'd get rid of him if he didn't play the game.
Yeah.
I mean, if he would have exposed them doing the conversion on my case, it would have ruined him. It would
Yeah.
have absolutely ruined him.
I don't think I could stick with that. I'd have to get a new career if I started seeing these things happen
That's
and then
exactly
speak
what I
out
was
against
gonna
it.
say is there's no job worth doing that. No, and, I mean, if it wasn't for me writing this book, I wouldn't know what I know happened in my case, and
Yeah, you uncovered a lot. Mhm.
it was definitely fraud on the court.
Yeah, the research that you did just for the book. You already knew you had been handled unjustly, obviously, to write the book, but I know in the course of writing it, because I was watching you and working with you in that process, you found even more things. And the people that you've included, some of your friends, I'm sure you met them because you were all fighting the same thing. CC Tillett, Vicky Sims, just to mention their names and their stories. You are just showing how commonplace it has become to
And
deal with
Cece
so much
Tillett
violence.
was my rock through all of it. I've known her since
Mm.
2007 when I was with Fortune Families United, and I don't really think I would have made it through it without her.
Wow. Yeah. And Washington Families United, you talk about that in the book. I don't think I have an excerpt from that, but you were both advocates for other families. Is that right?
Yes,
Yep.
that's how I got started was when I found them, and,
Mhm.
we did a good job. We worked very well together, all of us, and, made a lot of changes here in Washington, but that was before we had the internet and all this stuff, and
Mhm.
I tell you what, man, we could have done so much more if we woulda had social media back then.
Yeah. Well, now you have the book and
Yeah,
social media, which is why you started a campaign that you talk about at the end of the book. And it's your website, which is Families Matter, is the campaign. that's where I know you have a newsletter too. So you're really stepping back into that arena.
I found Washington Families United when they took my grandson when he was 2, and they claimed I had a CPS record and a felony, and I knew I had to do something. I could not allow this to happen because if it's happening to me, it's happening to other people. I'm not just special to where they're out to get me. And so that was the start of me really becoming a good advocate. They were so confident in me and boosted me up that gave me more confidence. And that's why even though my case is over, it would be easy for me just to walk away and say, "You know what? I'm done. I don't want to deal with this anymore." But I cannot do that because I don't want my grandchildren and the next generations to go through what I've gone through or what another father has gone through, grandparent, mother, whatever. I mean, it is such an injustice in family court that people like me, people that have went through what we went through, it is important for us to speak out and try to help others. When I was advocating, it was so hard because I was helping one family at a time. And I don't want to do that. I want
Mhm.
to fix the system to where it helps everybody. It should not matter what zip code you live in on what the law says.
Yeah.
I mean, our children are the ones that are paying the ultimate price for all of this.
Yeah. Let me read another excerpt now. This is from a chapter titled "The Body Remembers What the Courts Deny." You say, "When I first started having seizures, I thought people would assume I was faking it. I had no control over my body. It was terrifying. My hands would shake. My speech would slow down. I would lose mobility. During one court hearing, I was fighting so hard not to have a seizure that when I tried to reach for water, I dumped it all over myself. I started trembling uncontrollably. My daughter stood up and said, 'This is typical. She just wants attention.' That moment encapsulates something most people do not understand about family court trauma. It is not just emotional, it is physical. It rewires your nervous system. It makes you sick, and the people causing the trauma will use your body's natural response against you, claiming you are unstable, dramatic, or seeking attention."
Yep, that's about it. I'm telling you, it's psychological abuse is what they
Mhm.
did.
Mhm.
And they made it to where I mean, I can only imagine when people bother me when I was going through that because they make you crazy.
Yeah.
They make you feel like you're in a nightmare you cannot figure out how to get out of. Does
Mhm.
not matter what you do. And when I developed those seizures, I was very lucky to have a very good group of doctors
Mm.
because they assured me immediately that I was not faking it, that it was, a natural response to abuse, but they didn't know exactly at the beginning what it was. So when I had it and I ended up in the emergency room, they wanted me to get tested for epilepsy.
Mhm.
So they put a helmet on with wires coming out, and I was in the hospital for 3 days, and I didn't have a seizure at all until my ex-husband showed up. When he came in the room, I had one, and right then and there, my doctor told me he knew exactly what the problem was
Isn't that
and
amazing?
asked me if I had been in an abusive relationship with him, and my daughter said, "No, it was my oldest daughter that was abusing me." But when I think about it now, I was in an abusive relationship with him, but it was all verbal. It was never physical.
Yeah.
So I never really saw it that way.
Yeah, and that's so important too because I think so often when we hear the term abuse, we just think of being hit or punched or
Mhm.
when mental abuse is actually so much more.
Hard because nobody can see it because
Yeah.
you don't have bruises.
Yeah, and yet it's actually I think it's harder on you because it's
Yeah.
confusing. And family court breaking the Constitution, they're trampling your rights as a parent and as a grandparent. And it's so unexpected because that's not what the courts are for. That I think there's a period of time when someone's first being introduced to this kind of corruption, you can't hardly believe it. Like you said, you're like in this nightmare that you don't know how to get out of. You never expected it. And so I think there's also a period of just being able to accept what's happening, because it shouldn't be happening like that. It's so illogical at times. Nobody deserves a 99-year restraining order. There couldn't be a bigger evidence to the corruption than to put a 99-year restraining order on a grandmother who's never done anything wrong. There was no action that you took that justified that. So it's literally mind-blowing, and
Yeah.
until you can wrap your brain around it, otherwise you're just getting ramrodded, and before you know it, you're having seizures and sicknesses and even suicide. I'm seeing so many
Yes.
suicides from parents because of family court.
Well, and the bad thing about the restraining order is I had a restraining order on my daughter from years earlier
Mm.
for harassment. I had all this evidence to show she was the one harassing me. She was the one that was trying to turn her kids against me.
Mm.
There was no evidence whatsoever on me. And the only thing that makes sense that she gave me that restraining order was because I went out and got the kids' attorneys. And that made her furious.
And the court's obliged. The purpose of this book and everything else you're doing. It says, for years I lived inside a storm I didn't create. I watched my family fracture under the weight of systems that were supposed to protect us. I watched my grandchildren suffer consequences they never deserved. I watched my daughters get pulled into conflicts shaped by fear, manipulation, and institutional failure, and I carried the guilt of every moment I couldn't stop. But healing has a way of revealing truth, and truth has a way of revealing purpose. The day I stopped asking, why did this happen to us? And started asking, how do I make sure this never happens again? Was the day my story changed. It was the day Families Matter was born. It's not born out of victory or from closure. It definitely didn't come from justice, but from the simple, unbreakable belief that children deserve constitutional protections and families deserve systems that honor their humanity. Is powerful. The fact that you're like, hey, this didn't come out of any kind of triumph or success, but the unbreakable belief that children deserve constitutional protections. I know that's one of your big talking points, is that children have rights. I'd love you to expound on that a little bit, if you would.
I think one of the issues that we have with a lot of these groups is we have mothers' rights, fathers' rights, grandparents' rights, but it's always the children's rights. The children have a right to a stable, healthy home. They have a right
Mhm.
free from abuse. They have a right when they get to be a certain age to make certain medical decisions, but they don't have any rights at all in family court. That doesn't make any sense.
Right.
They're humans. They have a right the minute they take their first breath.
I think this goes back to what you're saying when you call it human trafficking. They're
Yep.
handled like a commodity
Yes.
that's being fought over by those who are in the court, and the court is just raking in the money. And really, the best way to keep money coming is to keep you fighting, which is
Yep.
definitely not to allow the one who's actually doing things correctly to have the rights, just like they stripped you of your rights with that restraining order and other things that they continue to do to you throughout the years.
Yeah, exactly. And, we need to put more of the focus on the children versus
Mhm.
the mom and dad and grandparents. I mean, I'm a grandparent, but the children are the ones that pay the price. And they're not property, and they are treated like they are property.
Yeah,
And
most definitely.
that needs to stop because they have a constitutional right to free speech, to be heard, to have a lawyer present. They held my 15-year-old daughter into court because she refused, or granddaughter, because she refused to sign for a GAL because she wanted an attorney. And that judge threatened her and said, if you don't sign this, I'm going to sign it for you.
Yeah. Can you believe that? They just get away with it. And
They do.
I think that's one of the main points you're making too, is that there's just no accountability. It's not
None.
like that. It's not like the judges actually have the right to do what they do. There's just nobody holding them accountable.
No, if we have these doctrines that are stopping us from going to federal court.
Mhm.
One of was stopped us when they denied my grandkids attorneys. My attorney actually tried to appeal right away. Well, it was blocked because this statute will not allow you to appeal until there's final orders. Well, by the time there's final orders, the damage is already done.
Yeah.
And I can guarantee you, if she knew the minute she denied those attorneys that I could appeal and the whole case would stop during the appeal, she never would have done what she did. The only reason she's done what she's done is because she knew she would get away with it.
Yeah.
It's the only way.
Yeah. So that's a big part of it. Well, I'd like you to just take a minute, if you would, and talk about Families Matter, what that is, and how you're pushing back against that lack of accountability.
Family Matters is a movement. We don't advocate for individual families. We're advocating for change on the federal level. And the reason is because they get federal funding for almost everything they do in family court and CPS. And we want to hold them accountable by withholding that federal funding if they do not follow their own constitution. Because not only are they violating the federal law, they're violating their own state law by doing what they're doing.
Right.
So our whole goal is to make sure that families get protection and are able to go to federal court if they are violating the laws and not wait until after the court ends. Because by then, children are already damaged. So they need to be able to do that. When we have a newsletter, you can go on our website, familiesmatter.info, and sign up for our newsletter, and you'll be able to keep up to date on that.
I know that you are putting out really important information through your newsletter. It will help people who are going through it. It's just a great resource. In addition to holding the courts accountable, you're protecting people. So I would just encourage everyone who's watching this that's in any way at all in danger of this kind of abuse and trauma to go to your website and get on that newsletter, because you're sending out such important information and they're just not going to get it if they're not signed up for it.
It's important, even if you've never dealt with family court or CPS. You don't want to wait until you're there. It's good to have the information so that if you need it, you've got it. You can also get my book on my website. The link is there. Talks all about our mission, our vision, the book, and then the newsletter. If they want to contact me, they can contact me through familymatters.info. They can sign up for the contact list and get a hold of me through there. We have TikTok and we also have a Facebook page.
So all your links are there on that website. It's just a nice central place to go to find out more about what you're doing, to get involved, whether they just want to receive the newsletter or if they want to get more actively involved, then they would contact you through that site and that would go straight to you. I think that's really great. I actually have a couple more questions for you. So I'll move to those. The next question I have is, how did you come up with the title and the cover of your book?
Well, the title was pretty easy because they're not here to help us. Okay. They are not even close to wanting to help us. So that was very easy. And as far as the picture goes, it was very good because it shows kind of like a monster reaching out and trying to grab the children. And that's basically what family court CPS is.
I love it because you actually see this upturned, almost like a giving hand with a business suit on. And then the shadow of the hand is what reveals what it really is. I think that's so meaningful because, like we were saying, so many people don't realize that they're not there in a benevolent way, even though on the surface they look like they are. Your book cover does a really good job of capturing that reality. And then the people standing below the hand in your cover, they're reaching up to it, wanting help, but really the webbed shadow hand shows it's really just a trap.
You've got to be very careful with these providers because they will act like they're on your side and act like your friend. They are not. And the minute they go to court or talk to a social worker, they will say the complete opposite.
Yeah. So I think that's why that cover art really visually conveys the reality of this situation that is so commonplace. Such an important book. All right. My last question for you is, what advice do you have for aspiring authors? So anybody who might have been through some kind of trauma or has something important that they want to share, purpose that they're finding, like you found in writing your book, what advice do you have for that person?
My advice is just start putting your thoughts down, start writing. And like with me, when I first started out, I didn't know what I was doing. I had no idea. And as you know, you wanted to interview me, and I had a hard time with that because I had to get it out on paper. Once I started getting it out on paper, things just came to me and it just automatically started coming out. And I was able to write it The biggest thing is don't let fear stop you
Mhm.
because if it's meant to be, it will happen. And you got to just put it out there.
Yeah. Well, you have a very well written book, a very important book. It did go to number one as a top
Yeah.
new release in a couple of the categories. So it was well received. And I think that you've definitely been a great example to anybody who wants to be an author that you can do it. I know this is your first book, right?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
And I've been wanting to write one for years. I never thought I'd ever do it. I finally don't have any family drama. First time alive, and it's been nice. I really wanted to write it, not just to tell my story, but to help other people and understand what they're walking into because they're walking into a lion's den.
Yeah. Well, and I'm watching what you're doing with Families Matter. And I can see the commitment that you have to this cause. And I know you're going to make a huge difference. And I truly hope that people will realize that you're one of those that's in this for all the right reasons and that you're just trying to take the experience, both as a person who suffered the trauma and then as a person who was an advocate, because you are a very experienced advocate. Now, I think we should also mention that you have a bachelor's degree in criminal
Yes.
justice. So you did the academic route as well so that you truly are empowered to help people.
Well, when I was with Washington Families United, I had some judges question my credibility because I had no education. And that's when I said, okay, I'll show you. And I went back to school and graduated at the top of my class.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. Experience is much better than an education. But when you're
Yes.
dealing with the system, they don't care about your experience.
Yeah. Well, you have done everything that you needed to do to be equipped to be the leader of this movement and to turn around and empower and equip other people as well. And I know you do have a great group that's right there at the home of Families Matter with you who are also equally expert. And so I'm really excited to see what you accomplish now that your book is out and your movement is going. And I thank you so much for taking the time to come on Triumph Talks. You are a triumph, even if you don't feel like it. I know you're like, this didn't come out of triumph, but I would say it very much is a triumph in and of itself.
Well, thank you for having me, and I'm so glad I got my book out there, and now I'm gonna get this movement going, and I'm gonna help every family and child I can possibly help.
Yeah, I know that you will.